So here we are, Carl from Gameanon, also known as Talkshowhost. I'm doing sort of a review video for Hotline Miami 2. I really look forward to this game. I'm joined here by the experienced noob himself,
What's up,
Joel
everybody?
Cook. And so I've been playing a little bit of this game. I wanted to throw this video together to show you guys why we gushed so much about the first one. You should go back and listen to that episode.
Yes.
Sweet poster. I'll have to look at which episode that is. But here we are in Hotline Miami 2. It's pretty much an extension of the first one, except they kind of took the storytelling to the next level. You can see here, it's very early 90s themed. The music is probably like the star of this.
I'd say the music is almost as good as the game.
It's like without it, they can't be separated. Like it kind of ties music and gameplay together the way like Tarantino ties film and music together. And there's a lot of similarities. Like I've been thinking about this. I like noted this down. Like in this, you're kind of hearing the story from multiple perspectives, and it's told not exactly chronologically, so it kind of pieces together a lot of the way that Pulp Fiction does. Here you can see that we're looking at some masks. Each mask is a different bonus to how you go into the level, so you can have to choose this really quick. This is like a little bit of me choosing this pair. Like, I don't know, it's hard to, like, you keep track of the characters. Basically it centers around a lot of murders that happened in the first game, and the story behind them and how they're all connected, and you play from the perspective of like, right here we're looking at a reporter trying to get more information. There's other ones where you play as a cop investigating a murder, or you actually play as one of these henchmen in white eventually.
And that's way different than the first one. I've only played the first Hotline Miami, and so the whole new dimension of playing multiple characters is really different. That's pretty cool.
They throw it to you right up front. In the first one, you kind of have to like go through a lot of the game before things start piecing together in any manner, and the game is very like disjointed, but it's a very cool way to tell a story. I really like how they tell a story in this game. It's really not like a whole lot of other games in a lot of ways. But one thing that they've added for this in the second one is they kind of cut up. You could kind of see it in the beginning where it's cut up into like acts and then scenes, like a play almost. But except they're, like I said, out of order. I do like that you're kind of getting points as you go through it, and there is a global leaderboard for scoring. So,
that's cool.
And that's kind of like where it's almost where esports and like the gaming scene became big in the first place. If you haven't seen it, check out a documentary called The King of Kong. It's all about like who held global leader scores in the world for Donkey Kong back in the day, and like the stories of the people that go with it.
The original Donkey Kong?
Yes, the arcade Donkey Kong. And I've seen like it's all about these competitions where at certain places in the world, like 20 dudes come and play in a room, and there's all these arcade cabinets sitting next to each other. This game is such a throwback to that era, and like I love it though, but at the same time it's very modern and obviously extremely violent, but it's violent in a way where, you know, it makes you think about, like, it's a violent story, but it makes you like really consider. I don't know, it's like things can be violent. There can be violent movies that portray things in a way that are like really interesting, and it's not exploitation. It's not just like, oh, you're doing this and like there's nothing horrible that happens or comes from it. There's horrible consequences that are going on in all of these people's lives. And it's very like, it's intense. It's a very intense story, and the music really matches that. But for sure, this game is not for the weak of heart, Joel, as you know.
Absolutely. I mean, for God's sakes, it's banned in some countries.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last podcast we did on Gameanon. Australia government not a fan of this. I read something else, harkening back to that. Never mind. This is not about Australia, but I could keep talking about Australia.
We did that in episode 41 of Gameanon. You can check it out, Gameanon.com.
Let's just say they're a lot more conservative than most Americans would consider. But back to Hotline Miami 2, I mean, this game takes patience. Like, you are always outgunned. Look, like right here, I have a golf club, and all these dudes have assault rifles or shotguns, and it's just like, what?
All right, either way, they have ammunition. You don't have any of that shit, and it's nuts.
So it's a game that's hard to recommend to everybody, because I think a lot of people are going to kind of get bogged down in difficulty. If you get bogged down in difficulty, it might not be. It's a game that, like, obviously for me, it harkens back to those early, like I was saying, it harkens back to those early arcade games, and part of the way they got so much replay value was by being extremely difficult. And even like the early like Nintendo NES games and arcade games, they all had that high level of difficulty, and this one does too. So I do respect that. Like, you have to respect it. It's not the mechanics of the game. Like, you can complain about it and say, oh, it's cheap and you die. It's so easy to kill you because you get one hit. And yeah, you do, but I mean, it's
just be better.
It's part of the fun. I mean, it's a challenge. Like, I hate games where there's no challenge whatsoever. Like, to me, that's completely boring. And like, you're used to things. I think a lot of people are abrasive or find the game abrasive because it's not a type of difficulty that they're used to for the most part. I will say that I did like having a gamepad to play this game quite a bit. That's just my personal way of doing it. I think it's hard to say for me because I never played a mouse and keyboard. I played the original on Vita. I remembered finally, and definitely do a controller. I remember recommending that.
I would have to agree, because when I played Hotline Miami 1, the first one or whatever, I did on Vita, and I think it is nice, like with your thumbstick controlling the actual analog sticks. I think that really, I don't know, helps you, it enables you to like run faster and be a little bit quicker. I feel, I don't know, it just looks a little bit easier.
Well, a lot of the aiming is like directional too.
Right.
So it can be nice, especially with I'm using a PS4 controller as a gamepad. So you really do use all 4 trigger buttons in some way, and you're using you are using one of the triggers to kind of look farther, and that's a big part of that. When you break it down, the game is less like a slaughter fest than it is like a puzzle. It's a puzzle game, in my opinion. You have to know, like, you'll have to learn the line of sight and how line of sight works and where the pulls. You have to kind of learn the enemies as you die.
And Windows can kick your ass too.
You have to watch windows, you have to watch the environment and see like what's line of sight, where are the patrols. The AIs, there's several different types of AI you don't really know, and they can kind of switch roles at any point in the game. But God, like, there's no feeling like clearing a floor in this game or clearing a level in this game, and you get like the floor, and then the music changes. It goes, does like the music cut, and you get like, it's like so rewarding to get that cutscene at the end. It's like, oh my God, it's like an adrenaline rush and such a stress relief at the same time. Like,
can you see people rage quitting this game? I could see it all the time.
Joel, you know, like, even I who know, like, it's impossible not to. Like, these games are impossible not to rage quit. Even a game like Dark Souls or Bloodborne or whatever your high difficulty game is. This is one of those, and I'm extremely attracted to this one. I never played the Dark Souls games, but I do want to get into those, and I'm really looking forward to Bloodborne, which, I might break down and buy full price, but anyway, that's not part of this video. The difficulty is what's mentioned. You get rewarded. You get rewarded equal to the amount of effort you put into this game, and I just remember that in the first game. Like, the first game took me, it's like one of these, maybe it's frustrating for some people because it's like low graphics and they expect like, oh, games these days, if they have to, like, they expect it to be like, maybe they feel like they're getting screwed on two fronts because it's not like a pretty graphic style. It's very...
Yeah, but it's top down, old school. You have to know what they're basing it off of.
Exactly.
Where they're coming from. I mean, that's the point of the game. If you're pissed off because you don't like the way they did the graphics, that means they did it right, because it's supposed to look like 8-bit and old school.
Exactly. And I think, it's good. Like, you're gonna rage quit a game eventually. Like, playing games, that's like gonna happen. Like the best thing you can do with them is to quit for a while and then come back to it. Like I can't count the number of times I quit playing Hotline Miami, the first one, and then I kept coming back to it.
That's
because,
how you have to do it.
Because it's so good. Like it's such a great challenge. And yeah, it's not something that I want to beat my head against for 6 hour, 5+ hours at a time. Like no way. Like if I beat a level, even you have to kind of like, come down from it. Like the game is, I've said it about the first one, like it makes you feel kind of a high. Like there's a little bit of high there. Like, oh my god, I just accomplished this. Like I worked so hard at it. You're so invested in it. And man, I mean, such an addictive game. Very high replay value, especially with the global leaderboards and the scoring you can get in it. So,
are you far into it, do you think, right now, or is there any way to tell?
I think, well, it's hard for me to tell. I'm about 5 hours of gameplay into it, and I think the first one was probably total like 8 to 10 hours, even with all the dying and everything. I guess it kind of varies a lot. Because, yeah, the last levels get pretty epic in the first game. I'll just leave it at that. Like, it gets nuts. It gets really tough. There is bosses I faced eventually in the first one, or you'll just come across one enemy that's super unique that you'll never come across again. Typically, I call that a boss in a game. Sometimes they're tied into the story, sometimes they're not as hard as other bosses, or they'll just do one thing. There'll be one sequence that you really have to figure out. But other than that, once you do it, it is super fun and a great game.